Come Thursday, silence will fall upon Korea as scholars sit down for Suneung, the country's annual college Scholastic ability test. So what is the significance of Suneung? Why does Korea link Suneung to ultimate success in society? And how are pundits explaining the surge in Suneung retakers this year? Welcome to Issues and Insiders. We are counting down one day to Korea's college Scholastic ability test, and today we touch upon this annual examination and its implications. For more on this, I have Professor Park Nam-gi at the Gwangju National University of Education live on the line. Professor Park, it's a pleasure.
It's nice to see you.
I also have Kwon Soa with us. Soa, welcome.
Hello, Sunny.
Right, Soa, then let's start off with some very general information about Suneung this year.
Sure. So Thursday is D-Day for 504,588 people in Korea. That's the number of Suneung applicants this year for the 2024 college admission. So they will be taking their big test at 1,279 test sites in 84 regional exam units nationwide. And you don't take your Suneung at your own school's classroom, but at a different school that is designated beforehand, and it's usually either high schools or middle schools. So the Korea's college Scholastic ability test begins at 8:40 in the morning and ends at 5:45 for some a little earlier. Now, the test subjects are, I'm going to mention them in the order they are taken: Korean language, mathematics, English, Korean history. Subordinate subjects, examinees choose among social studies, science, and vocational education. And last but not least, a second foreign language. And there's also a variety to choose from. Now, you can enter the test venue between 6:30 and you should be there at 8:10 a.m. So between 6:30 and 8:10 a.m. And this will be the first Suneung since 2020 that will be free of COVID-19 prevention rules. So even test takers confirmed with the virus or who have symptoms won't be separated from others. The Education Ministry, however, recommends the wearing of face masks. Infected exam takers will, however, eat lunch in a separate area for the safety of others. Now, speaking of safety, some 16,000 police personnel are to be mobilized for this year's Suneung. According to the National Police Agency, there will be officers in charge of overseeing sites that keep the questionnaires and answer sheets. There will also be officers helping in the distribution of exam papers and answer sheets, and also some thousands will be deployed at the test venues. Now, although you'll think that you won't be the one or your child won't be the one that's late for this extremely important test, it happens every year that an alarm doesn't go off, or I don't know what could happen. For that, there are also police officers who deal with the traffic on Suneung Day, and there sure will be some taking latecomers safe and fast to their test sites as well. As is the norm on Suneung, planes do not take off or land during the English listening section, and many non-test taking kids and workers head out later than usual for school or work. And one last thing, no extraordinary cold wave is expected for Suneung Day, because there's this word in Korean, Suneung hanpa, which means Suneung cold wave, but there's only expected to be some rain in the afternoon.
All right, good to know then. Professor Park, for the sake of our viewers who may not be familiar with Korea's college application procedure, could you tell us a bit about the importance of Suneung?
Okay. There are two types of university entrance exams. Early admission, we call it sushi, not Japanese sushi. Okay. And the regular admission, we call it 정시. And the Suneung influences the regular admission. And there are two types of early admission process. One is based on student records, and the other is the essay test process. And the student records process primarily evaluates high school grades, including comprehensive student records or academic achievements only. However, some universities might also stipulate a minimum average grade in the Suneung for eligibility. And I want to share something about Korea. That is, many people worry about, curious about what make Korean students study so hard. So one significant aspect is the belief in the fairness of the university admission system. For example, the direct influence of a parent's background on university entrance exams is strictly prohibited. For instance, admission through donations are not allowed. Moreover, the anonymous consideration of students' high school and socio-economic backgrounds is an essential aspect of the process. Violating these rules can result in severe legal consequences, including imprisonment. So in the university admission system, where students are selected purely on the basis of their academic achievement, most students are motivated to study hard to the last moment. That's why even students from affluent families also put in their best efforts to improve their academic performance to have admission from good universities.
Right. And that being said, Professor Park, would you agree if I say that most Koreans appear to believe that a degree from a prestigious university is prerequisite for success in society? And if that is the case, how do you explain this widespread belief?
The belief goes down a little bit, but still, it's a fact. Research shows that graduates from prestigious universities tend to have higher average salaries. In terms of getting a job, the direct influence of parents' socioeconomic background and the impact of recommendations are relatively low compared to other countries. To get a job at major corporations, including Samsung, or at reputable public institutions, one must pass employment exams, including written tests. The chances of passing these exams increase significantly if one has received a good education from a prestigious university. There have been some news reports of high-ranking officials and politicians losing their positions after being caught directly or indirectly influencing the employment of their children. We have that kind of fairness system. However, these days, there is a growing number of companies that hesitate to hire these graduates due to issues in areas like personal character, teamwork, and consideration for others.
Right, I see. Meanwhile, Suneung this year, I understand, comes after quite a bit of dispute over its format. Could you give us some background information?
Right, there is no change in the system or the general structure of the college entrance exam, but there's something that won't be included in this year's exam, which is killer questions. And those are a minority of extremely difficult questions in the exam, which often are decisive in differentiating between the best and very best scores. The elimination of these questions came on the back of President Yoon Suk-yeol's call on excluding material that's not covered by public education. South Korea is notoriously known for its competitive education fever that leads to extensive dependence on private tutoring and academies or cram schools, well known as hagwon. And it's those hagwons that teach students how to solve questions that are at university level or which are those killer questions. The high costs for private education is seen as one of the reasons the country's fertility rate is shrinking at fast speeds. So the Education Ministry announced to get rid of the killer questions starting this Suneung. This announcement came back in June, and the move resulted in mixed responses. Some welcomed it as it paves the way for more equal opportunities, while others criticized it over concerns the test will become too easy and the sudden change with just 5 months left until the test would make things more complicated. There was also the argument that hagwons would come up with new strategies anyways to lure parents and students. Well, the decision has been made and education officials went through numerous reviewing processes to make sure the change does not lead to confusion. As part of that, a new Suneung committee was in charge of examining the Suneung questions. They consist of 25 high school teachers teachers with at least 10 years of teaching experience, however, no experience in making Suneung questions. And the Education Ministry also said that it has put special attention on the minimizing of errors in the test, because it's actually not uncommon that test takers make objections after Suneung to questions following the exam.
Right, I see. Professor Park, speaking within your capacity as a scholar yourself, what are your thoughts regarding concerns about the absence of killer questions?
Actually, it is not that clear whether the government's definition of killer questions refers to questions beyond the textbook scope or to questions that are difficult to solve in a given short time. Anyway, I support the idea of removing killer questions. Solving difficult questions in a short time requires extensive practice in problem solving, which may lead to an increase in problem solving skills rather than knowledge and capability enhancement. If we decide to move killer questions, it is crucial to have a strategy in place to maintain the ability to differentiate among students. One way to increase differentiation is to broaden the curriculum content and the scope of the exam, and accordingly increase the number of test questions. Then 100% will go down. And incorporating descriptive questions that assess advanced competencies is another effective method. About the policy that Suneung should only test material taught at school, considering the objectives of the Suneung, this policy does not seem to appropriate, I think. The Suneung ought to assess advanced capability by evaluating students' ability to solve problems using the knowledge that have acquired in school, not just memorize things, right?
Right, of course. Professor Park, we had mock examinations prior to Thursday's Suneung, of course, and what were the mock examinations like?
Yes, we had recently October and September mock examination. So the mock examination for Suneung are set in a format and difficulty level similar to the actual Suneung exam. Students use these mock exams to identify their strengths and weaknesses and to plan their studies for the remaining period until the Suneung. And the government also used this research, how to make the different, like the level of the Suneung based on the student academic the research. So there are noticeable difference in the perceived difficulty of September and October mock examinations after removal of killer questions. In the September one, 52% students felt it was very difficult and 35% found it somewhat difficult. In contrast, in the October mock test, only 12% felt it was very difficult and 23% found it somewhat difficult. So I think based on the October mock exams, there is a possibility that the proportion of high-scoring students in this year's Suneung will increase compared to last year.
Right, I see. And moving forward then, Soa, so over 30% of Suneung takers this year are test retakers. Could you tell us a bit more about this particular reality and its broader implications for parents especially?
Right. At the very beginning, I gave you the number of the registered people of applicants. Do you remember, Sunny?
300 and what's it?
It's a big number. It's 504,588.
Well, over 300 and something then.
That is almost 3,500 fewer applicants than last year. But here's the big but. Among the total number of applicants, 326,646, that's 64.7%, are high school graduates, and almost 160,000 or 31.7% of this year's Suneung takers are retakers. 재수생 in Korean, or you also say 삼수생, 사수생 if they take the test even a number of years. So we often refer to them as ensuseng. And this proportion of retakers is the highest in 28 years. Last year, the percentage of retakers was 28%, and also back then it was the highest in 22 years. So what does that mean? Of course, a big concern for those who take Suneung for the first time, more competition with experienced test takers. The reason behind the increase in those who are taking another shot in Suneung may be due to expectations of an easier test this year, but also the government's plan to expand the enrollment quota at medical schools. In fact, heads of Hagwon said many students focusing on science and math-related subjects are actually turning towards preparations for a medical school.
Right, I see. And staying with that, Professor Park, how do you explain this phenomenon of having more test retakers this particular year?
Yes, like you said, there's in 27 years, the retakers ratio is the highest. It's something, right? I think there are two reasons. It's already told that the number of high school graduates taking the Suneung has significantly decreased, but the quotas for prestigious universities and popular departments have not. So as a result, college students and even those already employed are retaking the Suneung, and they want to change their lifestyle and job. And another factor is the disappearance of killer questions, like you said already, which has increased the chances of students who are not exceptionally outstanding to score well through retaking the exam. They think they may have better score. This possibility has led to a significant increase in the number of students opting to retake. And it is expected that the number of retakers will further increase if the quotas for medical school are expanded in the future. It's not decided yet.
Right, I see. And Professor Park, based on what you've shared with us earlier on, it's obvious that Suneung is a very important part of the entrance procedure for universities. That being said, is there a way to make Suneung a more effective testing tool, do you think?
Yes, the Suneung should measure advanced capabilities such as application, analysis, implementation, criticism, and creativity, not just memorizing power. To achieve this, it is necessary to introduce essay-based exams alongside multiple choice tests. And furthermore, the duration of the Suneung exam should be extended from 1 day to 2 days or more, like some European countries, I think.
What about the importance of interviews, do you think, for entrance to university? Would that play a very important role here in Korea?
Yes. It's based on, it's different from university to university. Some university case, they make the big difference at the interview score. Then interview will be the most important thing. But some universities, they don't make the score gap not big. Then that is not that important. But usually in the 정시, they don't take the interview as seriously. But sushi, usually they put some score there and make it an important criteria.
Right, sushi being the early admission procedure that you mentioned earlier then. Right, so
Yes.
let's end on a light note. As test takers tackle Suneung within classrooms, I believe their family members are elsewhere seeking to raise their chances of success.
Right. Not only the students prepare for Suneung, but their parents, especially moms, I have to say, because they are more likely to get really involved in actual preparations for the big test. And those preparations include studying themselves, maybe not the Suneung material, but admission procedures and information of different universities. So with which scores can my child go to which place, or where should he or she apply for sushi, which is what Professor Park explained earlier. So parents go to many school information sessions that provide information on requirements for different universities. And where you can also find them is at Buddhist temples or Christian churches, where moms in in particular pray all day during the 8 to 9 hours. Others pray in front of the exam venue schools to root for their kids as near as possible. In the days, weeks, and months ahead of D-Day, parents also make sure to make no sounds at home and to do their utmost in keeping the test takers' so-called condition at the best.
Right, and speaking about that, we had these posts on our apartment complex talking about the need to be a bit quiet during the period leading up to Suneung, which would be 2 weeks before Suneung.
Oh, I see.
All right, so as always, thank you very much for that. And Professor Park, thank you very much for your insights.
Thanks.
Right, well, with our best wishes to Suneung takers this year, we end this edition of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching.